other ways I can do, like centers. But at the same time, it was nice that she was introduced other stuff. But in the long run, I wanted, the first time I introduced to my students, they were like, teacher, what's this? And I wanted to say, oh, I feel like just, putting it away and put it under the carpet. But I said, I have to do it. I have to learn. So I kept waiting for Brenda to come in the hallway and say, why? She's not here, where is she? So that went on, and then afterwards, after 2 weeks later, the students starting to get it right. Group 1, cool. They'll know how to read their names and they'll go to their tables. Then after a while, Brenda came along and said, look at this, look at these students. They know how I would ring my bell, ding, ding, ding. They knew right away after like 2 weeks, like you do it. And after a while, she would still come by and sue me. Then this year, I was doing it myself. I still need her, but not as the first year. So I have fun with kids and Brenda. Sound like I want to pull my hair. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, so what we did was we took some core elements, and just to give you a slight background, I've been bumping around mainly a couple of communities in remote northern Ontario for a lot of my short life, and so I building on what I learned, worked there in different positions, always working with people. And you work with what you have, what's there. It's no good saying, oh, well, this series is the best expert series, and you don't have any of the resources. So you have to work on what you had, and so that was part of it. Mm-hmm. So one thing that was resourced, and here's the MFNERC, was the leveled books, and there had been a project they were coming in. Also, dusting off the corner of the library that actually had tables in front of it because they have no storage room, we found the Reading A to Z series. And because I was able to go back and forth, I could use UCN, do some photocopying, we could put some money in from the project because they're always running out of paper. All these little things that make things work. So we took core things like working in small groups, small group instruction, group rotation. And the kids in the classroom being able to start working together and be independent and not always be, teacher, how do I fill this sheet? And that's what we worked with, and working on Connie's strengths. So I'd go in the room and see she had something, I'd flip through what she'd been doing on the chart paper and pick up on that. And I might be reinforcing it, I might be extending it, and I'd just jump in and go, okay, I'm here, I'll take your kids for a little while instead of you doing the calendar, and do something with them. Meanwhile, that gave Connie time to get something together that she hadn't had time to do. This is reality. Like, teachers are very, very busy people, and Connie's got lots of children and grandchildren and everything to look after too. You know how you become a resource. So we work together just realistically as human beings to make it happen. And to begin with, and this, when a vehicle something stuck, it takes a lot of force. I know there's a physics principle here, but I'm not good on that stuff. It takes a lot of force to get it moving. But once it's going, you're good. Well, that's where the support really is. So the kids haven't been used to working in groups. It takes a lot to get it going. So part of the rotation when we started was one group with Brenda, and I out of there into the library with them and work with them to get them into being able to focus, being able to do things, not visiting a lot. And when you have the kids, they get there early in the morning, they're on the school bus, they're there at lunch, they're there all day. It's in your own community, it's your own community people, it's aunties and grandmas, and that you see. There's that even increased tendency to just be visiting. So part of the whole procedure was getting them to be able to focus, which then passes on to every subject area. And once they were able to do that, then we could have all the groups in the classroom without any withdrawal. And gradually, I wasn't taking a group. Even if there wasn't an EA, they were able to do all these groups. So those are the core kinds of things that exist in many best practices programs. And we pulled them out and worked with what we had so that the learning could happen. Connie's awesome, what can I say? Anything else you want to add to that, Connie?
Yeah. Probably after the files, after so many coming up, there's other stuff that wanted to do what I'm doing now. Yeah, they come to me, to my class and say, how do you do that? But not all of them will want to try it. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, so part of that was the outreach to the school. We had not just the groups, but we had the more traditional full class reading buddy system. We had, as the students moved along and more of them became proficient in reading, then we had one session where they have their book bags with a whole series of at-level books, and the ones who were reading now just sat at their desks and read. 3 students came in from a grade 5 class, and if a kid stuck on a word, they just put up their hand and someone came down. And that gave Connie additional time to work with the kids who were not able to read and leveled readers yet. And it advanced to, as part of the group structure, the highest kids listen to the next group read, that next group listens to the next group read, and again additional time that was needed for the lowest group. So mixing and matching and changing what's happening in your structure as the needs of the kids change. And you know, there's a time when students need that additional attention. It's really, really going to help them move them to the next phase. And so moving in and out of that with the focus. And Connie does all of that now. Mm-hmm. And the one where we had the kids coming in to help, they loved it. Like, if a child who was supposed to come was away, the rest of the kids, can I go? They just, it was really good. And the teacher will come and say, are you going to do that again, please? I have students waiting to come down and help in your room. So it had a lot of positive. All right, I think we've basically talked about the impact already. So, and we did celebrate the success, particularly with the students who were helping. We got, some goodies to give them and everything, and they just gushed totally at how much they appreciated doing it. And of course, the research from a long, long time ago that I remember is whenever you're doing a mentoring thing, it is actually the students who are doing the helping who have the most significant gains because they're learning about learning. So it's not like some people think, well, they're not getting their work done. They are. So it worked really well. So we're continuing it. Worked in Connie's room to try it on, and for me to learn how is it going to work, what's going to help, what's the whole context of the school. And then now that it's continuing across the school in different ways, as is appropriate, and the willingness of different teachers to do it. So it looks different in every place. It's not a formula. The formula is see what's going to work and work with the people there. That's the formula. And we're very blessed there that they got some back money that had been owing for years from Indian Affairs, and have the whole Nelson Literacy series right across. So now the BEd students are actually doing a group to help kickstart the teachers in using those materials. And they'll do their planning and long-range plans, short-range plans, daily plans, get some formats going so that when they're out, they're going to fully engage with the Nelson literacies within this group structure as one of your time with the teacher, that's when you're doing your Nelson literacies, so that it can be done in at whatever level the kids are looking for. Okay.
So I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't know how long Brenda was working at that, but she would come and share her experiences with me, and I had also done a few lessons with the middle years math methods students over a couple of years when she was here on campus, so we had a relationship already. And she was sharing this model of support in the classroom and building success in a place where resources are limited. People resources, because of the costs of transportation in the north, it truly impacts the education, the way we can support people. Anyways, she asked me if I would come and be part of that, and because they've been focusing on the literacy part, would I do some in the numeracy area? So she was reiterating that she wanted a small group approach, cooperative learning happening, that it needed to be experiential, and that I needed to start where the people were at. And I think, and build on those strengths. And I believe in my practice, that's where I start. And it's very difficult sometimes to make those connections and help people feel safe. So part of another experience and piece that I bring is having lived in a small community and raised my family in a small community, lived off the land, and so there were some parallels and things that I would understand about Connie's community when I went there. Anyways, I was trying to follow Voice's intent there to make sure that the professional development was done on site. So the plan was not for us to bring the teachers out, but for me to go into the community. And initially there wasn't a plan for in-class support. So one of the things I was thinking about as I was preparing to go into the community is, how do I make that connection? How do I make people feel safe with me? So am I going to be the expert, or am I going to be a colleague? Here's a new voice, a new person, an old lady with white hair. Can I create a safe space for them to take risks? Because I am from outside, and they know nothing about me. And so that was important for me, is how to develop that relationship so that people are able to feel safe. And I also talk about math phobia because I am math phobic, and we do know that math phobia can shut kids down as early as kindergarten. And so we have a lot of adults that are also in the system as teachers that are math phobic. And if I come in and somebody says I'm a numeracy support already, there's math phobia happening. and I see that in the different jobs I've done through the years also. So one of the things I needed to do was make sure that I could be that person that they could be comfortable with. One of the other things is to narrow down the possibilities. So I had to focus on the K-2 because that's a group of teachers that Brenda had been working with. We did have grade 5 teachers, and the pre-service teachers, of course, could be going into any grade. But it was good to have them know the beginnings of how you learn about number. So I also took into consideration the curriculum. All concepts say, let's start with concrete, then go to the pictorial, and then go on to the symbolic relationship when we're, or representations when we're building our ideas with students. And I also thought about the tools. Again, knowing in small communities that resources are generally limited, and they can get lost even in a community that's larger. People move from classroom to classroom, and where did things go? So I needed to think about the tools that I would present to them and make sure that they had access to them. So I went in April, and then I went again in May. In the first weekend, we talked about those foundational skills, those understandings about number that we need in order to build our strategies. So we talked about things like cardinality and counting skills, the relationship between numbers and quantities. We did talk about strategic thinking. We did a little bit about mental math. And the tools that we did were those tools that they would need in their classrooms right away, so that they're not got these ideas and saying, I can't do anything with that because I don't have what I need. I didn't really mention my sources there, but I drew on my math recovery, and we did settings for acting out problems. I know that's one issue that I find over the years with children, is they often can't tell you a story problem if you give them a symbolic equation to base it on. And so we really have been pushing that idea that you got to start with real life connections and with a problem. So we gave them paper settings and counters that they could help develop that in their classrooms. And the other thing that was built in was that opportunity to try it out with each other. So I'm going in for a weekend, they're coming all day Saturday. And talk about commitment, right? And so we want them to have an experience, not just hear about it, because in PD, if you hear about things and then you walk away, you've forgotten most of what you heard, right? You need to have that feel of it. When I went back in the second weekend, we did, I thought, okay, I'm going there and I'm sharing things. I don't even know where these kids are at. I don't know what's happening in their classrooms. I don't know. I haven't been in their school. How can I be sure that what I'm offering is attainable in terms of being able to use and be useful? So what I did is I asked Brenda, I said, would it be possible, would the teachers feel comfortable if I came in and just did a model lesson so I could see that the ideas that I'm thinking about sharing actually will work? Because we know sometimes there's many other pieces at work, and a certain strategy might take way longer than what I have time to do in order to support them to have it work. So anyways, they generously opened the school to me, and I was allowed to go into the classrooms, and we had a lot of fun. We did some beginning grouping activities in the grade 2 class, and they did a little gallery walk and looked at each other's work, and we talked about which counting was more efficient, that kind of stuff. So I was able to model a lot of math language for the teachers also to see what that all meant and how you put it together. And so that in-class modeling was mostly for me when I initially talked about it, because I thought, I want to make sure I'm doing stuff right for these guys. But maybe Connie can talk a little bit about how the teachers felt about me being in their classroom. Anyways, we also did get to finish our tool building on that last weekend, and they went away with some really good amount of things to get started with and to share amongst each other. Do you want to comment a little bit about that process?
When she came into my classroom, I told the students they're gonna play a math game, and they were very excited. Then when she made them sit in a circle. She made them copy what she would have in a math plate. Then she would copy it. They have to copy it in their hand, what number that they have.
The supervising spatial dot patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had to draw it.
Yeah. Then the next game they did was Siwaggles, the Wiggles or something, the snake.
So
They have to throw a dice, and they count the dice. Then they put if it's 3, then they put 3 cubes, and under the 3, they have to look for the number 3. Because there's some students that don't know what 3 is, right? So they have to work together as a pair. So they work together. So it was very fun. Well, for me too. Yeah.
It's always fun when you see your kids having fun, right, and learning at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things when I was choosing activities to go in is that I wanted to encourage partner learning. One of the things that I was listening to when I was listening to Brenda and Connie share, that idea of building a classroom community and having the students learn from each other, building experts within the community, that classroom community, so that when the one reading group was listening to the next reading group, and we want to do the same thing in mathematics, so that we have a backup plan. We got somebody to check our work against, our thinking against. We get a chance to hear other people's ideas, so I don't have to invent everything in my life. I can learn from everybody else and know that if this person's an expert in this and this person's an expert in that, and in that way, we really build success for the students because they feel safe in that kind of community because they're valued, right? And so let's see what else I got here. So I guess in terms of impact, I was really impressed, first of all, that we had a room full of people, and they were all there on a Saturday. In fact, the second time we had the in-service, there was a little bit of a family crisis, and 2 participants had to leave to deal with that, but they came back in the afternoon. It was like, oh my God, I thought they were going to be home, and and that was it. But they settled things down, and they made sure things were okay, and they were back learning. And to me, that's commitment. That's the commitment to learning, that's commitment to taking advantage of an opportunity that comes to your community. And I was very impressed with that. They actually got the tools they needed. They could see some of the implementation possibilities in the classroom. They didn't have to wait till they had to make the tools. And this idea that community of learners, they had a visual representation of that because the kids actually were looking at each other's work and sharing and working together. What else have I got there? I wasn't able to provide ongoing support like Brenda was. So, Connie, you want to comment on that again? That I only came for 2 weekends.
Oh, yeah.
Where are you?
When she said Brenda. Yeah. She left with all her little math games. But she never came back. I asked Brenda one time, when is he coming back? Because we want to know more, have her to come and to have 2 more presentations, like little games, because we have these little games and we forget how you play this game with your students. So we wanted, but maybe next year or yeah, we have like
costs are expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only if we have something like that to be supported, like outside, to come in to a little reserve like mine, Oxford House, especially when you have 21 to 26 students in your classroom, and you have no TA or special needs worker, so you have down the best thing. That's what I focus on the 2 centers. Yeah. Even though they said, teacher, are we doing centers again? I said, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So I guess my last comment there on the slide was that I was trying to support those instructional strategies that Brenda had identified with the community circle and the teachers. And so that idea of the group work and working with games, now they were able to begin that transfer to using it in their numeracy classes also.
Mm-hmm. It was amazing, the dedication, the teachers. One of the things that was missing in the school was a lot of manipulatives, and we have been able to buy a few, but there's a need for a lot more. A few years back, there'd been a mold problem in the school, so they lost almost all their resources. Things had to be thrown out. And Shelley certainly brought ideas about how to collect things and do them. And I think certainly right after, the teachers were trying to put things into place in the classroom. They wanted to do, they immediately, like whenever I go in, I see evidence of what has come from those 2 sessions, and the spending that time at the school itself was really important. Just in that relationship building too, and it's the real context, and it was important both ways round. The intent, my intent was to be able to provide more support than I've been able to, and to be able to bring the teachers together to plan next steps in terms of the math, more than has been able to have happened. And again, that is the reality. But to me, the picture is really there. It continues to reinforce that the support is needed, not because teachers are inferior or something, because these judgments tend to get made. The support is needed. The teachers are open to the support. It needs to be provided. It needs to be ongoing. And the difference in terms of how much they've been able to work forward with the math compared to the literacy is entirely around that having time to pay attention. And of course, when many of the kids are 3 grade levels below in reading, we know that the literacy in a second language community tends to take a focus. But the request for math came from the community and came from the leadership to do that. So this was a stab at starting it. And we know within the system as a whole that there's lots of professional development needed about math, because how many of us were trained is not what's best practices today. The BEd students up in Oxford House are very involved. They're in the trainings because they work as EAs in the school. They take on little pieces and carry it forward. We work closely with the resource teacher in that, and it's an entire partnering. And from my perspective, within Keenanow, within UCN, that's part of the conversation of how we move forward with our next cohort of community-based programs. And those students will be doing some presentations later. So, and this is not anything firm, but the research itself really reflects back to, I was so happy for the opening address because I haven't had time to go to the literature, and now I've got some good phrases and some places to go to get some things quickly to frame that more academic aspect of the research. I've been doing it from a human perspective, but that was actually what came out in the address, the leadership. So the leadership and, sort of in the hierarchical thing, the consultants, the next line down, how are we supporting those educators? And coming from the perspective of Keenanow, I think it's a really, really important question for everyone, just as the truth and reconciliation things are for everybody to be looking at. So as divisions, in all these different places, these students from the north may come in because they moved to town, and so you have them. Some of in higher education, they're coming there. So supporting, finding ways that we can work more together to be really supportive of the educators who are on the front lines dealing with all of that stuff every day, full on, not just at school, but in their communities. How can we do that? And as providers of that professional development, the research is about looking at our own practice. How are we doing it? And so certainly in the vocabulary currently of education today, the expert and the situation, and that was spoken to in the leadership. The best practices, yes, they are. They're very good practices, but every practice is in a context. So with the literacy, of course I was looking at the Daily 5. When I examine it, I took core aspects out of what helps make Daily 5 work without it having to be, all of a sudden we need to do this whole big thing, because I knew it was too much to make happen. And I think that, I guess my interest in what I'm trying to promote is for people in different places to start looking at that. I'm only in the area that I'm in, so I can impact that area for a little while. But I think that needs to happen. And I think we're in the climate today that it can happen, that we can all see in what ways we can help and shift how these things are looked at. So my comparison is, so much today we talk it needs to be student-centered. Right? Where is the student at? What are they doing? Move them along. All these different things. We should be applying that philosophy to how we provide professional development for teachers. It's that simple, really. So we need to walk our own talk as educators who are not in the classroom, but doing all those other levels of it. And my pet 2 words, relationship and context. Keeps it all alive. The other piece to it, which is really important. So, interestingly, once I started exploring more in the context in Oxford House, there was only one teacher in the nursery to grade 2 who actually had early years training. It has been the history of Northern education, the programming for teachers that has been provided in getting their certification, that it is middle years. And we know that middle years and early years take different things. So I think, we need to look at where people are coming from. So we're kind of working on this was just Shelley and I throwing words in, but can we create a different kind of best practices approach, that it isn't about the specifics of any one thing, but represents the philosophical approach and the practical context of supporting educators. So, thoughts? This isn't if anybody has some direct thoughts, but it's more like putting that question out there. We're very groundwork, but wanting to be putting that question out there for people in different contexts to see where their areas of influence are, if any of this resonates with you in any way. You want to say some final words?
Yeah. To become a teacher in a remote area like me, I had a hard time trying to. I was a EA, a support worker. The student came to me and he asked me, how do I do this? And I couldn't really explain it to him. That's when I said, I want to go back to school. Then I wasn't qualified anywhere. You had to have this and this and this. So finally, after 2 years went by, post-secondary counselor called me that UCN was opening up to hire teachers. I came, and they hired me. I was there for 2 years. So I'm still learning. It doesn't stop. Yeah. To see the little ones, they read to you now. To listen to them, it's very hard, It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and Connie shows just a picture of perseverance. She was in our first, like 80 people got interviewed in Thompson, and less than 20, were taken through. And she was one of them. So she was one of our first group of students. However, with family situations along the way, including needing to care for her mother, and who then eventually died, and other things, she needed to take time. But she did finish. Mm-hmm. And as part of that was my entry into Oxford House, because of finishing some of the work there. And so that's why I say relationship. She's just awesome. Can't say enough. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to say anything else? No. You're done? Well, thank you very much, and really appreciate this opportunity to get our feet wet with putting out a little bit of what we're doing and our message. My gosh.
Thank you.